Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colorful Pixels, the show where I talk to the people behind the pixels. I'm your host, Carmen Askerneese, and today I'm joined by Jay-Ann Lopez. Hello, Jay-Ann.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really happy to have you here.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting out.
Well, I want to start off by asking a question I ask a lot of guests is, do you remember the very first time you played games or your very first memory of interacting with games?
I feel like I give a different answer to everyone that answer this question for. So my very first console was a Nintendo, but before that I used to play Doom on the PC when my mum would be working. So she'd be working and she used to work in like a radio station. So when she'd be presenting, I would be on the PC playing Doom. I remember that very, very vividly. But I also remember having a Game Boy and I cannot remember which one came first. I think the Game Boy came first. And I remember having that and that being one of also some of the earliest gaming memories that I have. Um, and that was mostly Mario. So yeah, I think Game Boy and Doom were the earliest thing, and then the console came afterwards, I think.
Yeah. Was your mom, was she like concerned about you playing Doom, or was she like, it's fine?
No, she wasn't
Oh,
concerned at
really?
all. She was pretty fine with it. Because I think as my countenance as a kid was like kind of I wouldn't hurt a fly, so she's not worried that I would be
Right, sure.
radicalized or like get influenced by the game. She's like, no, she's just playing a game because she likes stories and she likes different worlds, and
Oh,
that's pretty much where it came from. Yeah.
that was really sweet. I had a similar experience. My one of my first games I ever played was playing Mortal Kombat with my
Oh
mom.
yeah, I had Mortal Kombat 2 on PlayStation when I first played it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your mom play games with you also? Like, did she play?
Oh, she would try. She
Oh.
would try. My mum's Jamaican, so like it would be a lot of bun fire when she's trying to shoot something, and
Yeah.
she'd be missing, and it would just be a lot of like energy on her side, but it's not really hitting on the game. So I just be like, it's all right, mum. I got some. So she would try, but she's not an avid gamer, not like that. No, she does remember like the old school Pong games, like when they first came out. And I think that's how I kind of got interested in the history of video games because of the way my mom's relationship and experience to video games was completely different to mine growing up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like your mom was kinda there when it first kinda started and kicked off.
Mm, yeah, definitely. I think it was. I definitely remember Pong. Her mentioning Pong or Atari. Um, so, but I just don't remember what iteration of that was, which Atari it was. So, but I do remember that. Yeah.
What do you think was the moment after you sort of started playing more games? You had your Game Boy, you had your consoles. At what
Mm.
moment were you like, "I wanna like, who makes these things, and I wanna get involved with, like, the whole industry and the making of these things?"
So that was later, the getting involved and trying to, in a way, the word is influence. I don't want it to have a negative connotation, but influence the industry to recognize that their audience is wider than it is. But my first interest into like who makes the games and a little bit more behind the games is with gaming magazines. So like PC Gamer, the PlayStation magazine that happened back in the day. There was a shop in the UK, which still exists, called WH Smith. And even prior to that, I would go to the corner shop, which you guys would call like the corner store, and I'd get like the gaming magazines. My mom would buy them for me, and I'd be reading those magazines and reading the stories behind the games and who developed what. I don't think I've actually said that to anyone out loud properly in like a full discussion. But yeah, I used to read the magazines a lot. They used to come with the demos as well, the CD-ROMs
Oh, yeah.
sometimes. So and even in cereal boxes, anything that had some kind of gaming tech interaction, I'd be interested in. But yeah, the magazines were, I think, my first point of access to like understanding a little bit more beyond what was on my console, on my PC, or my Game Boy at the time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there was, I remember there was, like, a pizza deliver I'm not even pizza, I don't remember who it was, but there was, like, a pizza delivery service that would have little demo discs on them, and you
I didn't know that. Like, I don't
really?
know if we may have had that, but I don't remember it, like it happening to me. But yeah, just the demo discs were like a core part of my childhood.
Yeah, because it's like you get to try out all these games. It was kind of like going to Blockbuster or something because you get all these games on
Mhm.
a demo disc. That was pretty
Yep.
sick. Do you
Yeah.
remember like when you were reading the magazines? Was there like were you looking specifically for like games that you were excited about, like new stuff, or were you specifically looking for like developer stuff, or did you know what developers were back then?
I didn't know in the entirety what developers were, but I also think comparing my knowledge now to comparing my knowledge then is a bit redundant because also there's new roles in game development that didn't exist then anyway. So it's not that I couldn't perceive it, it's that also that they probably didn't exist, like influencer marketing or that really didn't really exist in the same way. Um, and studios I think were a little bit smaller back in the day than some of the bigger conglomerates that you see now, especially for AAA. But I think I was just reading from just pure curiosity, about the game itself to, like, understand what happens in the game and how it was made. It wasn't necessarily like, "Oh, I'm interested in being a developer," because I don't count myself as a developer. I'm not one. But I just think it was more so about just interest, just genuine interest into this medium, into the things that I like, the games that I play, and also, what's coming out as well, so I could kind of convince my family to get it for me. I remember being on a whole tirade campaign when the Xbox first came out, and I was like, "I want this Xbox. It has to be mine." So, yeah.
Were you able to convince your family to get it for you?
I was, and I got that big chunky controller, the one that I was so enamored with because it was so different, it was so unique. I was in love with the first Xbox when it first released. I was That was one of my prized possessions.
That's awesome. I did something similar of, like, trying to get my family to understand games so I could get the consoles. There was
Mm,
this channel back then called G4, and I would try to get my mom to watch it with me. Uh,
yeah.
I asked her for a PlayStation. She brought me home, like, a Sega or something
Oh,
completely different.
you got
It
the wrong
had
one.
it was big, "We have Power Rangers at home" energy. So,
Oh boy.
yeah.
Well, I never got a Sega, so you blessed with that. I didn't get one. But, yeah, that whole introducing my family to games, definitely. And my uncles knew about games. They were the ones who got me my first console in the first place, so it wasn't really educating them. It was more so like my mom or my nan, and to be fair, I never really had that much pushback because I was a good student. If I wasn't a good student, then I probably would have had more pushback on the games, but they saw it as my fun time and as a reward for being a good student at school, so that's why.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, after you were looking in the magazines or whatever, what was that process like for you, like, moving into the professional space and, like, defining your own space?
So when I define my own space, it was these are completely two different areas of my life. So the magazine portion was like childhood to teenage years. The wanting to be involved in the industry and creating like a grassroots platform was adulthood, and that was like mid 20s or so. And it was more so from like wanting to create. YouTubers started to like become more influential on YouTube and stuff, and I had seen two content creators who two friends who at my university within my university friend group who were also becoming content creators, and their content in a way rubbed me up the wrong way. There was a lot of like AAVE and they're white British men, and I'm just like, what are you doing? It
Mm,
just didn't make any sense to me. And a lot of the time, like there'll be ways like femininity would be at the bump the what's it called, the butt of the joke,
mm.
if they were making like commentary and stuff. And I didn't vibe with that at all. So I said I was going to make my own channel, and I made my own channel, and I started going to cons, and I would bring my brother with me. And but over time, I noticed that I'm not the only kind of black woman that one enjoys games, but also where are they? Like, how do I find them? I'm sure I can't be the only one. So that's when I kind of converted to do stuff for creating Black Girl Gamers and creating the space and the community, and then that kind of took over and took off, in terms of word of mouth and some of the things that we were holding the community, the gaming community and the industry, um, account for, um, were like at the time there was a lot of assimilation, and a lot of black content creators kind of just wanted also to be noticed by the industry, but in that way they let certain things slide, like major content creators, white ones saying the n-word and stuff, and I'm just not with that. Like, I don't care who you are. um So, and then we also called out the industry regarding representation, hiring practices, how, honestly, they're reflecting against their diversity, inclusion, etc. Policies. And so, yeah, that's how kind of the community grew by word of mouth as like a safe space, but a progressive one as well. That would be helping to hold the industry to account for some of the things that they uh, were doing that just didn't really s- speak to inclusivity at all.
I remember, you and I met recently, and then, I
Yes.
remember years and years ago, uh, learning about Black girl gamers, and I was doing a lot of, work with an inclusion group at the company I was
Mhm.
working for, and we were using a lot of your work
I know.
and what y'all were doing. Yeah, well, yeah. But at the time, I was like, "I don't know this person," but it's really cool what they're doing because it's not only helping our people, but it's also making the industry reflect the world that we actually live in and reflect the
Yeah.
people who are actually playing the games and not, like, perpetuating stereotypes or, profiting off of racism, to call it what
Yeah.
it is.
Ab
But
and absolutely, and, like, it was such a bittersweet moment for me, like, because 'cause I'm glad you told me that because I love when people tell me that, but there was so many moments where I know something that I had tweeted or put out in the world had ended up in meeting rooms in these companies, and no one would say anything. And then this company would come out with, "Oh, we've made these changes." Okay, but who influenced you to make those
mhm.
changes? You're not being honest about the fact that you have been influenced by this entity, by this organization. And rather than, give credit where it's due, a lot of these companies do not give me credit, do not give Black Girl Gamers credit for the influence that we had on the way that they see their consumers, their content creators, and their characters. The three C's, I say, because there was a lot of people coming to me like yourself who've done that in the past, and it's only my people, like only Black people, telling me, "Oh, this was in a meeting room." I was like, "Oh, okay." No one else would tell me, and I was like, "It's fine." So with the journey that I've had, you kind of just have to sit in your space knowing that, okay, I've done good. Even if people haven't told me that the work has ended here, I know I've done good. So yeah, it's bittersweet, but I like the fact that we can trace that impact back by, even if it's not like on the mass scale, I can still track it back via some people like yourself who will tell me and stuff. Like I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we appreciate what you did, and I think that, like, I think sometimes that's something that is kind of, unspoken of how thankless the work is.
Yes.
And I think it's also, like you mentioned, it's not an accident when the companies kind of put on a show of oh we're like we're being more inclusive or we have this new hairstyle or we're making sure that we're not lightening people's skin, lightening storm skin or
Mhm,
whatever. And but there are
mhm.
people who are doing that work, and a lot of the times those people are uncredited. Those people are
Absolutely.
moved into the background, wiped away, and so thank you for the work that you did because it's not falling on deaf ears, and there are people who are noticing. I think, unfortunately, sometimes those people are more quiet than it would be nice if people were a little
Mhm.
more loud about it. But I
Yeah.
appreciate you doing it anyway because the work is having an
No.
impact.
I appreciate being appreciated and being, heard. That's the main thing for me. It's like if we can have impacts, then that's great. That's all I kind of care about. Been doing this for 10 years, on and off with second jobs, third jobs, and all that kind of stuff. Like the impact is mostly what I care about because I love the medium. I love video games. I love the art. I love the perspectives that we can get through it. And I just also wish that it wasn't just from a very monolithic lens. I think, there's so many, if it's a storytelling form medium and a form of storytelling, then let it be a form of storytelling. Don't just tell a specific story over and over and over again. I was at DevCom earlier this year, and it this kind of practice of telling stories that are hyper visible, usually European, um, is not like just hurting marginalized people. It's also hurting people who the story is told about, because I was in the room for a talk from the studio that is talking about, diverse storytelling in games. And there was a dev, and I can't remember where he was from. I think he was from Denmark, but I know it was a country in Scandinavia. And he was saying, like, my culture is hyper visible in video games, but it's often now wrong because Vikings never wore horned helms. They never wore those, the horn things.
Mhm.
on the hats. They never wore them, and he's like, "Yeah, this is now a misconstruction of the truth that's now representing my culture," which is literally not true, and now games run with it, and it's just it kind of harms both sides. So, yeah, I think it's good to have these discussions, that's my thing. It's like, it's not just for people who are marginalized, it's also for people who are hyper visible to also be represented in a way that doesn't flatten them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's really powerful insight, and I think that that's something that also in the rooms that I'm in where I'm trying to have those conversations, I
Mm.
try to use it from that perspective so that people who may not be from a marginalized community know that they are a part of this conversation also,
Right.
because
Mm.
you have a culture, you have a background, your people have customs, you have clothing, food, languages, like all these different things that are being sort of used as costumes or as
Mm.
ways to like monetize
Mm.
your culture in an inauthentic way. And I think that
Mm.
like that's not to say that it's that we don't want to have people's cultures on display or in games or like living these fantasies. But I think in order to like use those cultures to make something new or make something fictional. But I think it's
Yeah,
like when you're doing that, you need to do it in a way that's respectful to the culture and you're also
and
honoring where
intention.
it comes from. And if you're making
Abso
something new, you're not passing it off as this is the actual culture itself.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's it, like, sometimes I've said to devs in a room, sometimes it's like, it's just simple as a simple disclaimer. Why are you guys complicated? Like, it doesn't
It's
need
not
to
that
be
deep. Yeah.
it's not it doesn't need to be that deep in that way, like, you can just acknowledge that we were inspired and did our research on XYZ culture. We thank the people for their insight, and this is the simple. Just the same way you have trigger warnings in certain games, which I think should happen a bit more because there's a game that traumatized me. But, yeah, there's just ways of doing things, that I think is and I get, like, we don't wanna over kind of, quote, unquote, "police" people. We don't want to make it so, so such a rigorous thing that people can't move or explore or create new things. No, but you still can just do that with being intentional and being respectful. That's not a hard thing to do. I just think when you're doing something you've never been asked, it feels like an over encumbrance. And, and I don't vibe with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I think a good example of that from my personal experience is like if people who know me personally know I'm a hater of the of the Avatar franchise, the Blue Na'vi one,
You
and
know what's so funny?
what
I am too. But you
you
guess what? Guess what I booted up last night? I'm such a hypocrite. I wanted to see what the game is. Like, I wanted to be able to speak on the game. And I was like, okay, cool. Because I know the movies and I know how brilliant they look, but it ticks me off that we're basically watching our history be reiterated on screen via blue aliens. It's like very obvious that you've taken from indigenous American and indigenous African cultures, and you've used them to create this second-rate Pocahontas story. Essentially, it's very like anyone. I just yeah, I get frustrated, by
yeah.
very
I
much.
mean, no, rightfully so. And I mean, the my biggest beef with it is I think that if we want to retell history through fiction, that's fine, and we can do
Mm,
that. But I think that we need to be authentic with it in the sense of like, I don't want to see Navi with locks that are played by white actors. Like
I
honestly,
get you.
you lost me there.
I get you. I get you with that because for me, like, also that movie has white savior complex syndrome, and I'm just over it. I am so over that, and it just that movie is not for us. That's why I say, like, that movie is not for us. It's for the people who are most likely not marginalized, waking up to the fact that this is what happened in the world because they haven't been educated elsewhere. So they need to find some kind of fictional, entertaining way to tell the same story of marginalized indigenous people and what happened to their land. Because I don't understand what's new about this story other than the way it looks beautiful. Like, great.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that like not to keep piling on Avatar. I mean, well, like we did
Yeah,
start off
like,
by
I
saying
literally like
disclaimer.
worked on it. Good, I know good devs that worked on the game. That's why I also wanted to play it to see like what the work turned out to look like. 'Cause I don't want to like just take my opinion and run with it. I will experience the work and say if it's a good game or not. Like my personal opinion is also by the by. I can't deny a game's quality just because I don't like the premise. But yeah,
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I
What
was
were you saying?
it's the IP for me. It's not just the game, but I mean,
Right,
not to pile on the game, but or the IP. I mean, but I think that like if there are people who enjoy it, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. I'm just saying
same.
for me, I think that if we're going to find ways to make history palatable or to tell stories, real stories, real history, through fiction, I think that there's a responsible way to do that.
I
And I
agree.
think part of that responsibility is making sure that people aren't feeling, misrepresented or excluded from their own
Well, you
history.
right, exactly. Like if there was some videos going around TikTok with I think it was South Sudanese people talking about, well, this is from my culture, this is from my culture. And just having an interaction with the people that you're inspired by. Like I don't understand the problem with that, like reaching out. But I think it speaks to the greater mindset of just take, 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 as opposed to, want to be inspired by it and share and give credit to, because there's no reason as to why you couldn't do that and like that be a part of the press run for each of the movies, or you talk about, we spent some time with the people and asked them about their culture and to inspire this because we were retelling this story for the contemporary audience to understand what happened in the past by going into the future with space, like space travel and all that. You could really PR, like, it's not hard. I don't think it's very hard at all to make things more respectful and more, aware, but I think if it doesn't happen, sometimes it's because people don't want it to happen, and you have to take that at face value. If they could, they would, but they don't.
Well, I mean, I think bringing around back to what we were talking about earlier about like how your work has been impacting people in the industry and those conversations are happening in the room.
Mm,
I think most of the time, especially on these bigger budget projects, projects that are with larger studios, larger publishers or whatever, when there's thousands and thousands of people working on it, it's like the only way that those things are going to happen is if the people in the room are having those conversations.
yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of the
yeah.
times that comes down to who are the people in the room
Yep.
and like and maybe there are people in the room who would be willing to have those conversations, but they don't feel safe to do so. And so,
Mhm.
I think it's a really big problem,
Facts.
and it's not just yeah, I love to hate on Avatar, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's not just Avatar, it's a lot of I think there are a lot of
No,
different, stories and IP out there that they're doing the same thing where it's like there aren't the people in the room or there aren't people who feel empowered in the room to have those conversations to make things happen.
agreed. Horizon Zero Dawn, love that game down. Still guilty of what we're talking about in terms of like utilizing aesthetics from indigenous cultures and centering a white character. Like, and I love that game. I think that game's fantastic. Like, I really enjoy it. But I think that's part of the been a part of the issue with like people when they uh come across like our work or the tweets or whatever we've done in the past or now, is that they feel quote unquote attacked. And I think because they don't think that you can have an opinion and also love the medium. Like you have to be hating something in order to critique it. When genuinely I critique the games that I love. Like a lot of the games that like I've again booting up the Avatar game yesterday. I'm enjoying the first like I haven't played it for very long, but I'm enjoying it as a game. It looks gorgeous. And I love the kind of parkour element that you hit up in the first kind of 5 to 10 minutes of the game, but I can still critique the game. And I think sometimes, devs are artists and they're precious about their work, and I can understand that. But sometimes you have to take that step back from the things that you love to critique them. And yeah, as a business owner, I can also say that's hard. So I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm most critical of the things I love the most. I feel like if something I don't like, I'm like, yeah, it's cool or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
I
exactly. You
don't
don't
have anything
yeah,
to say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, whatever.
But I also think that like, with art and the way that art is transforming, I feel like things are a lot better now than what they were
They
back
are.
when I was first starting in the industry as a professional. And I wanted to ask you like what are some of the ways that you've seen things continue to progress and like what are some of the
Mhm.
ways that you've seen your work positively impact the industry that makes you feel proud of the work that you're doing?
I think outside of like there's a couple of things that I've noticed, and I know I'm going to speak to areas that I know that we've had impact in because I can't really speak for how other things come about. But like one of the first things that I've noticed is that more Black content creators work with brands now, and we've definitely been helping that happen. Lots of Black women specifically were not getting brand deals, were not even streaming publicly online, like in terms of camera, facing camera, because they were so afraid. And we've helped make that a thing of the past through like our platform and stuff. In terms of games themselves and the companies themselves, one of my favorite parts is consultation. I truly enjoy consulting on an upcoming IP, on the characters, on the lore, on the representation, on even just like I love a good plot hole because I consume medium in general. Like I know people in film and TV, and I've become very much like a film TV critic head kind of person. And it's I also look through games at the same lens. Like this storyline doesn't make sense. Like why would they do this? Why would you have the option to do this if that's happened in the past? I look through games in the same way. I really consume them as a medium as opposed to just a quote unquote hobby. So for like consulting on that, I love that because everyone knows we consulted on Forspoken. That's the most famous one. But other ones that we've consulted on are like characters that are from a certain background and they don't have a real lore or story because in the time that they were conceived, again, Black characters weren't at the forefront. They weren't really cared about. So we can help flesh that character out to make it more representative and more aligned with the contemporary audience. Like that kind of stuff, I thoroughly enjoy. And I think we've seen more of it, not just with Black Girl Gamers, but with other companies like Sweet Baby Inc. You know, for like I love any game that they do, I also play because that informs my craft too. Like I am a fan of people who do things similar to me. I shadow them. I study them. Um, I am informed by the work that they do. So I played Alan Wake 2. I played Spider-Man, Miles Morales. I've played what's the other one they did? They did another one that I can't remember.
South of Midnight?
Uh, South of Midnight. Loved South of Midnight. Loved South of Midnight. And beautiful, beautiful game. That's one of my top games this year because it actually made me cry because I've never had a game connect with me um culturally. Even though I'm not from, you know, American South, there's elements of that that are culturally I can see in my own Caribbean background. And there's obviously the shared pain point of slavery that is touched upon in the game. And that touched me, genuinely touched me. I've never have had a game make me feel the way that game felt. And that is such a beautiful thing, and that could only have happened because of the changes that have happened recently. There's no way that game was going to be so well crafted without that involvement. And also, like one of the BGG members of our community was part of the community management team as well. So, like, there's that whole general kind of consciousness around inclusion and telling different stories manifests in different ways, consulting who steps onto the team, who contributes towards the game. That could not have happened um through the without like these changes we're seeing, and that tells me that there's so much more to do. Because as much as we're having, you know, great stories coming out, and another thing that's intersecting with this is, you know, the access for solo devs, to create stories that have not been told. And we're seeing like very small dev teams have huge impact. Look at Peak, look at Among Us. Like these games are doing really, really well, and they're very small, indie niche or small teams. So I think that's all intersecting to make these changes that we're seeing, and I'm here for it. I really am excited about what games can turn out to be in the future, when we like champion human creativity.
Very well said. I mean, I think like I remember when I was first getting started and I was playing The Walking Dead, the
Mm,
Telltale game. That was the first time I saw a black character that wasn't well, I mean, the game starts with him going to jail, but he wasn't like a thug, he wasn't a gangster, he wasn't any of that
mm,
stuff. He was just a guy. And
yeah,
I think that, that was really inspiring for me because I'd always wanted to be a game developer and to make games and tell stories in
mm,
this medium. But similar to what you were saying, I was like, how am I supposed to do that? Because I'm not the kind of person that's gonna compromise, especially on my culture about anything. So I was like, we're gonna have to fight. So it's gonna
mm,
be a conversation. And I played that game and I was like, oh wow, like I don't know I don't know much about the makeup of the dev team for that, but the people who made it, I appreciated that they took the time to make Lee a character and a person. And I think ever since that game came out, like you were saying, the work that has been done by your team and by other folks in the industry has gotten to the point now where we can have a character like the one in South of Midnight, where it's like the character's not just like black or they're like black Southern. It's
Mm,
specific because we are not a monolith, and there's so much difference between each and every one of us in our culture
mhm.
and our lifestyle. Um, and so it's wonderful to see, and I think that that's happening for other cultures and other ethnicities too, and not just for our the Black culture, which I think is really
Yeah.
important.
There's more nuance in general. I even with white guy characters, you know, the same gruff 40-year-old, wife or child died,
Bad
like,
dad.
there's no nuance. Like, I'm sure, like, if I was a white guy, I'd be like, "Bruh, is this all you think about us? Like, come on." There's nuance. There's different ways to make you emote other than killing off someone's wife or child. Like,
For their
you know.
man pain, yeah.
Right, the main like, come let's get into nuance for everyone, and I think, you know, I do think this is par for the course of any kind of storytelling, meaning we go through these very current stereotypical periods of time where everyone becomes kind of like a trope because it becomes the easiest way to connect with the audience and tell a story. But now we're in the phase where games are getting older, the industry's developing now. You know, this is where we should be heading towards. We shouldn't be doubling down on or pulling back from inclusivity and nuance for people, and I mean all people as well.
Yes. Like it's very juvenile to like have the tropes and to lean on the tropes and
Yeah, and the industry maybe was juvenile, and that's at that time. I get it. Cool. We're not there anymore.
mm,
We've left the home. We've left the home. Let's act like adults.
yes. Oh my gosh, very well said. And you know, I think that like just for people who are like, oh, DEI and all that kind of stuff, I think in an important thing to understand, just to like put my college professor hat on for a second, and let's all go to class together. I think that when we think critically about words and the meaning that we assign to words, I think
Mm,
the important thing to understand about what Jay and I are saying is that um, inclusion means me and you. It's not me
right.
or you. It's not you and not me. It's not me and not you. It's me and you. And I think that's very important to understand that distinction. Like we were talking about how everyone has culture, everyone has history. And there
Mhm.
is not a single person on the world who doesn't have culture or history.
Right.
And to create archetypes like what we were talking about with the Jack Savior hero character, the blank slate white male savior character, that doesn't represent anyone because there's no one who is
Mhm.
like that. And what we're saying is being specific makes people feel an emotional connection that resonates with their personal journey. And that's what we mean by inclusion.
Right. Right. Not flattening, like I said, with the whole um horned helm, like creating tropes and archetypes that don't even exist historically. You know, I think obviously because when it comes to audiences that are represented, you know, they may be comfortable with that representation, and that's fine. But other people are also able to and should be able to critique their how they're represented in media, especially if they've been marginalized and stereotyped historically for centuries. That, you know, we don't have the same journey, and that's okay. But to deny someone the right to self-represent is unfair.
And that's all it is.
Mm,
Thank you so much, Jay. We're almost out of time, but before we
mm.
go, I wanted to ask, where can people find you online if they want to keep up with you and the work that you're doing?
Yes, so you can find Black Girl Gamers or under Black Girl Gamers on every platform apart from Instagram. On Instagram, it's the Black Girl Gamers. But we're on YouTube, TikTok. We're on Blue Sky. I kind of after we left Twitter because there was a lot of racist stuff last year, kind of fell out of love with those kind of text-based social medias. So we're mostly on Instagram. We're launching our new website very soon when it comes to like articles, and we're going back to our roots, which actually was part of our initial um kind of business when we were starting around 2016. So we're bringing back our website. We're having people who work in the gaming industry, consumers, write about their experiences. So Carmen, I would love for you to write a piece as well about your experiences and stuff. um so that's coming soon. And then for me personally, you can find me Jay-Ann Lopez underscore. So that's Jayannn Lopez, Lopez. for Americans, underscore on TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, definitely go check out Black Girl Gamers. Follow them, follow Jay-Ann, and keep up with the cool things that she's doing. Thank you so much for being here, Jay-Ann. This was so nice to talk to you.
Likewise, take care.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. I really appreciate you checking out our episode. If you're on a video platform, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Leave a comment. If you're on an audio or podcasting platform, leave a review and let us know what you thought. Who would you like to see on a future episode of the show? I've been your host, Carmen Askerneese. You can find me online at Carmen Askerneese on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, and you can find me on Substack at The Save Point. Thank you all for watching and listening. I'll see you next time.